Okay, this chapter is on strategic management or strategy. There's some good resources in in the course content regarding this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Specifically, the resources, Porter's five forces. So strategy, the textbook doesn't do a great job here because what's really going on with strategy is strategy comes out of an organization's values. That is, the value they the values they have. These values usually show up in a product or service. So, like a company values innovation, and so they have innovative products, right? So the strategy is typically comes out of an organization's values and the mission. So it's kind of like the 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 mission is how they do their values. So if you kind of define it like this, vision is who they want to become, values is the motivator. We want to become a company that sells innovative products because we value, that is, it's something that motivates us. Innovation motivates us. And so we do, which is the mission, right? So that's kind of missing. It's usually vision, values, mission. Who we are is motivated by the values that we have, and it shows up in what we do. Vision, values, mission. So that's kind of lost in the textbook. That's okay. It's not a strategy textbook. But strategy is that guide in helping people determine kind of how they want to achieve those long-term goals. And the goals, again, are representative of who they want to become and the values that drive them. That's the mission. And when you have a strategy, that's basically it's saying we're doing this with our resources. That's your strategic intent. And the hope is to give you competitive advantage. That is, you're doing this, but you're not the only person doing it. There are other competitors in the marketplace. And so you have to have some type of strategic intent, that is intention about putting value in a product or service that actually gives you an advantage over your competitors. And strategy, once you figure out your strategic intent, is broken down basically into three levels. It's corporate level strategy, which is the broad, most general sense of what resources you're getting and where you're directing them for the market. But business level strategy is implemented in what's referred to as lines of business, and that's each organization has a number of lines of business, marketing, accounting, operations, and each one of those lines of business or divisions or business units are undertaking their share of implementing the same overall corporate strategy. So, basically, a business level strategy is what supports a corporate level strategy, and then guess what? Functional level strategy really guides specific operations to support business level strategy. So you could have a big target like we want to gain 3% market share in X market, right? Using innovative products. Super. So then let's say I'm in accounting. How do I support that as in a business level, that is in my business unit? How do I support that in my service or my product area? They say domain, but that's what it's saying. And so then as I operate in day to day, I'm in a specific area of accounting. How do I support the overall corporate strategy? Why do I do that? Not because I want to keep my job, although I do, but it's because I know that if I do that, we'll have competitive advantage. So I'm not going to go through these. I'd ask you just to pause. This looks an awful lot, and I'd ask you to pause and read this, but this looks an awful lot like the planning process. And basically what one's doing is you're analyzing the environment. You're basically looking at, all of the external components in the environment, and then you're trying to figure out where they are and where you are, and you want to develop a strategy, corporate business and functional level strategy to get there. And then of course you implement it and you evaluate. It's basically you analyze your current situation, you look at where you want to be. That would be referred to as a gap analysis. You develop these strategies, and then pause the slide and just look through that. That's something that we test you on, something that you need to know. I think it's pretty commonsensical, but again, management is a practice. It's not so much. It's a knowledge set, but it is a practice, and so it really requires discipline, especially at the end, which is you collect information, analyze the results. There's probably no more widely used tool than, if you're going to analyze your current position, which is that strategic planning process, there's probably no more currently or widely used tool and currently used tool than the SWOT analysis. Actually, companies who are publicly traded have to submit a SWOT analysis, and they're very lengthy. They're pages and pages and pages and pages long, 40, 50, 60 pages. And they're very good too. And basically a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. You probably know what it is, heard it before. But strengths, weaknesses, those are internal components of the organization. And opportunities and threats are external. The goal is to try to find, to get an accurate depiction of both where the company is and where the company is vis-a-vis or within its environment. Strengths, though, are important in the SWOT analysis because they provide an understanding of a core competency. And core competencies basically are these things that are hard to imitate by other companies, that they're hard to imitate, that they allow the company to have access to a number of different channels for delivering a product or service, and the customer sees these really as value adds. So in other words, they have a company that is, their core competency, let's just use innovation again. They could be an innovative company. So other companies, and they really dominate the market. Other companies want to be innovative, but they can't. It's hard for them to get the engineers that are innovative or the design patents that are already gotten. So they'll have this core competency, which is hard to imitate, of innovation, and other companies really have a hard time competing, and so it gives them a competitive advantage. So core competencies are really central. This is the SWOT analysis, and that's really what that does. It helps a company analyze its current position. I would ask you to pause the slide on the video and look at the questions that are asked in a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. You're actually going to be charged with doing a form of SWOT analysis in this module, so I'd encourage you to look at this. Porter's five forces. You know what? If you're in our business program, you're going to be engaged in Porter's five forces later. But basically, and actually, there's only four forces, which is force 2, new entrants, people coming in; force 3, suppliers; force 4, customers; and force 5, substitutes. Force 1 is actually when all four forces join together, and then you have intense rivalry. I'm not going to spend any more time on this because you're going to watch a video on the 5 forces model, but you will know it. Here's what is important: is that the 5 forces model basically says that within any competitive environment, and again, I want you to pause the video and look through this, but the 5 forces model, that video that you're going to watch, the other video you're going to watch, when those 4 forces create rivalry among competition, there's 4 of these forces that create rivalry, which Porter refers to as 5 forces. The market profiles for competition can look very different, and basically they can look one of 4 different ways. And so you have a cost differentiation, where there's cost leadership, that's your strategy. And again, there are forces, those 5 forces, right, are involved in that market. You have a low cost, but you're basically in a narrow market. You're more selective with the type of product or service. Or you may have a highly differentiated product. This is in the bottom right-hand corner. Or you may just have a differentiated product or service. Here's something I don't think is clear in the text and you want to hear. The 5 forces, right? Those Porter's 5 forces, the video watch, are not just for, and when an organization looks at those, they just don't look at everyone that's in the same type of business. So like if I'm a mom and pop restaurant and I have very highly, I have kind of this low cost food, but my food is very narrow. It goes to a very narrow market, but it's low cost. I don't look at all of the restaurants in Houston. What I do is I use those 5 forces to define the narrow market that I'm in. Does that make sense? So the 5 forces that you talked about, you watched the video that we talked about just a second ago, that you're going to watch the video on. Those forces are applied to each one of these various competitive environments or sectors, and that's important to recognize. So there's basically 2 axes. There's a broad market, you're trying to go after a lot of people, or your some type of advantage, competitive advantage, could either be cost or differentiation. And so you place yourself in one of those boxes, and then you begin to analyze your current position using the 5 forces. This is another one, and I'm not going to go through this. You'll read it in the textbook. But this is unique though, because the Boston Consulting Group matrix came up. Boston Consulting Group came up with this matrix. It was called the BCG matrix. Boston Consulting Group is what BCG stands for. And the interesting thing with this is that it basically says that if you have, and you can basically see the profiles the same, except it's similar to the previous one. And basically what it's suggesting is that there's a amount of growth in the market, and then there's the amount of share you have in the market. And based on those two axes, right, it's similar. It's this matrix style thing. Based on where you would position yourself here, it actually doesn't just tell you, like, for instance, in Porter's differentiation model or 5 forces, it doesn't just give you an analysis of where you're at. It actually has suggestions about what you should do. So for instance, if you're a cash cow, you have a lot of the market, high market share, see that? And your market growth rate is actually low, which that just simply means you got a lot of market, it's a low, steady growth. Just basically, it just says, stay where you're at. If you're a star, you're in a market that has a lot of growth, right? See that market growth rate's really high, and your amount of share you have is really high. And so they basically would suggest try to grow as much as you can. So the Boston Consulting Group matrix is unique among all of the ones you're going to visit in the text, because it's suggesting not only a position, this is where you are, but it's also suggesting what you should do. Okay, hope this was helpful for you.